Kakadosh Boker Or, Daf Yomi Masechet Horayot, Daf Gimel Amud Aleph 3A1. We were just finishing by talking about who was the one that was Doresh the mutes in such a fashion. So we said it was Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya was going to the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Rabbi Yehuda says the Gemara, Zot Torah Ta'ola Yaola Ala Mokta Ala Mizbeach Kol Alayla, right to go. He says over like this. From this pasuk, we're going to learn that korbanot are going to become pasul. Right? That means korbanot psulim that they already went up to the mizbeach, they don't bring them down. They actually bring, meaning once it went up, it doesn't go down, even though it's pasul. So says the Gemara, Zot Torah Ta'ola Hi Yaola Harelu Shlosha Miutim. There are three different exclusions. And therefore, if it already went up, it does not come down. Okay? If you want, you could answer, you still can't stand it like Rabbi Yehuda. But we learned, he says the majority of the kal are going to sin, so then the betin are going to bring up par. Now if you're going to tell me it's going to be shitat Rabbi Yehuda, he said that the tzibur bring it, the betin no. The Tran was according, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, Shiva shvatim shechatu meviim shiva parim. If you have 7 tribes, now is seven tribes the majority? Of course. How many tribes? 12. So 7 is the majority. So he says, but if 7 tribes sin, they bring 7 parim. So 1 second, how could that be? I thought if it's the majority, so then it's the bedin. It's not the tzibur, right? So it's not going to be 12. It's going to be 1. The bedin is going to bring the parim and davar tzibur, but not 7 parim. Why does it say 7 parim? That's a shita of Rabbi Yehuda. So obviously you see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's the tzibur that brings it, and not the bedin. So says the Gemara, Rav Nachman Shmuel says Rav Nachman Nima Shmuel, Zo, this concept that a yachid that does al pi bedin is going to be patur from chatat. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Aval hachamim omrim b'chachamim say yachid shasa b'orat bedin hayav. Really, be'emet, you're going to be hayav. Yeah, no, he says no. One for the bedin. The entire bedin bring one korban. That's why, because according to him, it's not the bedin that's bringing it. It's going to be the individual, meaning the individual tribes, meaning 7 parim. Yeah. So he says, what's Rabbi Meir? What's Rabbanan? What are we talking about now? So he says the time we learned on the Braita, horu ve'asur Rabbi Meir poter v'chachamim matrim. What happens if the bedin made a mistake and people did accordingly? So Rabbi Meir says you're going to be patur. Chachamim says you're going to be chayav. What does it mean now asu? If you're going to tell me the bedin asu, so what's the reasoning that the Rabbanan say you're going to be chayav? The Tanya we learned in a Braita, Yachol huru bedin ve'asu bedin yachol yehu chayavin. I would have thought that if the bedin is the one that's making the psak, and they also fulfilled that psak, meaning the bedin made a mistake, they said halacha, and then they actually acted by it. So now you would have thought to say you're going to be chayavin. Tamanumar kahal ve'asu maaseh talui bekahal. We're talking about a maaseh that was talui in the kahal. The hora'ah tluya bedin, but hora'ah is tluya bedin, meaning the actions is in the kahal, but the psak is talui bedin. Here, it's not that the action and the psak is talui bedin. So what's going on then? But not the bedin. Yes, but not the bedin itself. Yeah, not chayav. Ela, but rather horu bedin vasuru vakal. That's the pshat. The bedin gave the psak, and the majority of the kal they did according to the bedin. So that's when they're going to be chayav. So then what's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir that he says you're going to be patur? Right? Why does Rabbi Meir say you're going to be patur? So he says, Ela lav, or rather, what are we talking about? Horu bedin vasu miuta kahal. If the bedin paskin in the miuta kahal they did, ubeaka mipalgem. With this, they're arguing more savar. Yachid shasa b'rab bedin patur, more savar yachid shasa b'rab bedin chayav. I mean, there's going to be a machloket when you have an individual which is doing like maaseh bedin. Meaning, the bedin came and they gave a hora'ah, and now you have an individual that he comes and listens to bedin. Is he going to be chayav or patur? According to Rabbi Meir, patur. And according to Hachamim, Hayav. Amar of Papa. Rav Papa comes and he says, Techule Alma, according to everybody. Yachid Shasab Rabadin is going to be patur. He says, no, even everybody. Everybody holds it. If you're a Yachid and you did like Betin, you're patur. Why? How are you going to know better? Right? Imagine right now, Betin Agadol, they come and they give a psak, and then you follow.
You go up here and give halacha. Everybody follows.
Exactly. So what do you want then? So he says,
to bring tupa. We don't have to bring nothing.
Yeah, so he comes and he says, Ella, betin mashlim lerov hatzibur kamipoleh. No, the machloket is, are betin mashlim to the majority of the tzibur. Right? More Sabah Chachamim hold that betin is mashlim lerov hatzibur, and the Rabbi Meir holds Betin is not going to be mashlim to Rov HaTzibur. You understand what we just said?
No.
What do you need in order for the Betin to be chayav?
The kahal does it.
How much of the kahal? How much of the kahal?
The rov.
Rov, chazak u'baruch. So here the machloket is the Betin themselves mitzaref lerov?
For sure. Yeah.
So it's machloket. Chachamim say yes. Rabbi Meir says no. Yeah. All you need is two people, one person.
Republican, Democratic,
Exactly. It changes everything. All you need is one. You don't need 72.
It's all focus things. It doesn't matter to you guys. But we do.
Yeah. V'ibay Tamar, if you want, you can answer. Shevet she'asa be'ora bedino, Umar ha'hamim, Rabbi Yudai. The Tanya Shevet she'asa be'ora bedino, Oto ha'shevet chayav. He says, what happens if you have an entire Shevet that they did according to their bedin? So they're going to be chayav. And that is Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? V'ibay Tamar, if you want, you can answer. Gegon shechatu shisha. It was only 6 tribes. Now 6 is not the majority. It's the chetzi, but they're still the majority. Or 7, afal pi she'en rubo kan, and they're not the majority. Umatniti mani Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar omer mishmo, right, of Rabbi Meir hatu shisha ve'en rubo shel hakal, or shiva afal pi she'en rubo shel hakal chayavin. That means according to him, it's very interesting. You either need the rov of the shvatim, even though they're not rov Yisrael, or the rov Yisrael, even though they're not rov shvatim. Because you had the shvatim that were much bigger than others, right? So if you have the majority of Klal Yisrael, even though you don't have the majority of the shvatim, I mean you have 6, but they're already the majority in numbers. Or if you're going to have the majority of the how do you call it? The majority of the shvatim, but you don't have more of the majority. So says the Gemara now as follows. Amar Ravasi says Ravasi v'hora'ah, to do with paskening. Halacha charov yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. We go after the people in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. Shneimar v'yat Shlomo ba'et hayeh et hachag v'chol Yisrael imo hakal gadol nevo chamad nachal b'tzayim lifnei Hashem Elokeinu shevat yamim v'shivat yamim 14 yom. So it's 14 days. They did 7 and 7. Yeah, michdik tiv. It's written. V'chol Yisrael imo kal gadol milevo chamad nachal b'tzayim. Lama so why do I? If you already just told me the v'chol Yisrael is kal gadol, why did you have to tell me levo chamad nachal b'tzayim? So Shema Mina, those are the ones which are called the Kahal. But the ones which are going to be outside are not called a Kahal. That means the ones in Chutz La'aretz are not called a Kahal. So it says Gemara Pshita, obviously. So he says, Merubin v'nitma'atu, right? If right now you have, at the beginning, a lot of people, but then it became very small, right? That means they're not the Rova Kahal anymore. So Hainu Plukta del Bishimon Rabbanan. That's a machlok between Bishimon and Rabbanan. Muatin v'nitrabu. If you have a few people, right, which were not the majority of the kal, and then they became the majority of the kal. My what's halacha? Mi pligi, are they going to argue Rabbi Shimon Rabbanan? So come and he says Rabbi Shimon da'azil batara yediyah mechayev. Rabbi Shimon that is going after the yediyah is going to be mechayev, right? The par helem davar. But Rabbanan does batar chatat. But according to Rabbanan that they're going after the chatat, which is shat maaseh chatat, he's going to say it's patur because right now it's not the majority. Olo. So what's halacha? The Tisbra says the Gemara is logical. When do we go after Batar Yediyah? Only if everything's going to be chayav. But if right now you have the Yediyah without the chatat, is whoever told you such a thing? Just bring it down. You need both. You need the Yediyah and the chata. And therefore that's why he says you're going to be patur. Okay? That means you have to have it during the time of the chet and the time of the diyah. So he says like this: Ibay lehu horu bedin chelev mutar ve'asu miyut kahal. What happens right now? They came and they said chelev is mutar. So the minority of the kahal they did it. Chazru bedin bayin and they retracted. Ve'horu ve'asu miyut acher, and then they pass and then it's mutar, right? And then right again there was another miyut. What's halacha? Do you say that they combine or not? Kevin the shtei idiot ninu lo mitzaref. Or dilma kevin the yid chelev. It's the same thing. It's the same action. It's going to be mitzaref. You're going to tell me, Kevin, the Idi Chelev, it's all Chelev, Mitzaref. He says, Bechelev shal gabe akeva, umiut bechelev shal gabe adakin. What happens if it's different Chelevs? Meaning one of them is on the keva, one of them is on the gabe adakin. What's halacha? Hachavadai, Kevin the Bitrei, Krayeti. So here he says, two different psukim, lo Mitzaref, or Dilmar, maybe Kevin the Idi. V'di chelevu, at the end of the day, it's still chelev, it's mitzaref. A third safek, right? V'imtin tzulomar, right? Shem chelevu, that it's still chelev, and it's going to be mitzaref. What about chelev? Right now, the betin came and they did a psak, right? And the miut went after chelev. Miut bedam. What's halakha? Do you combine the two isurim or not? Given the isurim, given the right that it's not shaveh, so lo mitzaref. Or maybe you're going to say it's korban. One's the blood, right? And one's the other thing, right? So he says, the imtim tzolomar, now if he's going to come and he's going to say, right? He comes and he says, what happens now if you're going to say, v'imtim tzolomar, given the korban shaveh mitzaref, miut bechelev u'miut, v'avodah kochavim ma'u, right? Hacha vadai en isuran shaveh en korban shaveh, odima given the idi v'idi karetu, mitzaref, it is going to be mitzaref. So teiku, it's going to be a teiku. Yeah, in all these cases, teiku. Okay, we don't have an answer. So we had 4 different sfikot, and we have no answer. Yeah. Which one? Ibailahu. So now we're going to ask the following question. Horu bedin, right? Betin paskind, right? She chelev mutar. The chelev is going to be mutar. Vasu miyut kahal umet oto betin, and then that betin died. Famad betin acher, there was another betin. Chazu v'horu v'vasu miyut acher. Then you had another one. Right? So now we're going to say like this. There's another safek now. What happens if they came and they said chelev is mutar? Miutakal did it, and then that bedin died. Right? Those dayanim, they died. Now there was another bedin, and they said it was mutar. And now again, there was a whole mute that did it. So do you combine them both or not? Aliba demandamar betin mighty, that if it's going to tell me that the betin themselves are going to bring it, loti bay lecha, obviously they're not going to bring it. They died. But when is the question? Aliba demandamar tzibur mighty. What's alachat? Tzibur akai, the tzibur are alive, right? Gimel amubet, 3b. Or dilmar maybe the ubetin, right? The oru bayinan. You need the same betin that they did it. So teiku. Yeah, it's a teiku. Amar Rabbi Yonatan, says Rabbi Yonatan, me'ah sheyashvu lehorot. When you have 100 dayanim that sat down to paskin and they made a mistake, en chayvin shelu kulan. All of them have to paskin, right? In order for them to be hayav. If you have one dayan that was not there, they don't, meaning that he disagreed with them, they do not bring a par elem davar shel tzibur. Shlemar v'im kol adat Yisrael yishku. Ad shishgu kulan, or ad shetifshot Torah bechol adat Yisrael. Amar Ravuna b'shayach, Ram Yisrael, it's logical. Tevechol HaTorah kam alaynu rubo kekulo, ve'achak tiv kol adat Yisrael. Why? Hoil v'kach, afilu en mea, even if they're going to be 100, they all have to agree. Today we learned in the Mishnah, Horu betin yadai chamen shetelu. When if you have, right, the betin of the paskin, and one of them knows that a mistake. So he says, or tani v'roi l'ra. Falach v'sapi men shasu v'yisai men shasu v'yisai achadehen men shelo asu asa hareze chayav shelo talab v'din hayu dechayav ha'acher is going to be patur v'mai halon nigmera ora. According to you, if you just said that it had to be 100, what's this concept in the Mishnah? Mishnah said, if you remember, that you have one dayan that disagreed. Or Talmid Roi Leora. Now I understand Talmid Roi Leora, okay, fine. But if you have one dayan and he still did it, but he knows that it was wrong, so he's going to be chayav. But one second, if he disagreed, so then you don't have the psak. You just said that all 100 have to make a mistake. So answers the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Kegon shirkina ahu echad me'em rosho. He showed ki'ilu that he agreed. Right? And therefore, that's why there was a problem, because he showed that he agreed. So he comes and he says, Tama daman lahem toinatem. The reason why is because he told them, you guys are making a mistake, that you're going to be pturim. Hashati mishta, but if he kept quiet, they're going to be chayavim. So you could finish the ora. Why? Look around, it's not everybody, nobody paskin, meaning you need every single one to paskin. So Amli, they said, you're right. He nodded his head. Nodding the head is already enough. Mativ Rav Mishashia. Rav Mishashia asked the following question. Samchu Rabotenu ad divrei Shimon Gamliel. Ad divrei Elazar ben Tzadok. Yomi, they used to say, "En gol zigaz al tzibur, kan rov tzibur yochlin lamod ba." They'll never decree something on the tzibur unless the majority of the tzibur can stand by it. V'amar Rav Adam ben Maika, what's the pasuk? B'me'ara atem ne'arim, v'oti atem kovim agoy kulo. What does that mean? It's much fun that the gezerah is only going to be chal when it's going to be agoy kulo. And therefore, so says the Gemara, v'hacha here dichtiv agoy kulo, ruba kekula dami. So there's a tiyufta Rabbi Yochanan, tiyufta. This is against Rabbi Yochanan. Because Rabbi Yochanan wanted to say a goy kulo, that it had to be all the dayanim, all the 100, if there's going to be 100. And here it's written Agoy Kulo, and it's majority. So says the Gemara, Ela mai kol adat Yisrael, the Kama Rachmana. What is kol adat? Hachi kama neika kulam havya keora. Vilo lo havya hora. He says only if it's going to be a hora, if all of them are there. But if they're not going to be there, they don't bring the parelem davar shel tzibur. Amar Rabbi Yoshua, says Rabbi Yoshua, Sarash Yoshvim Adin, Kolar talui b'tzavar kulan. If you have 10 people that are sitting in the judgment, the kolar is on all 10 of them. Right? So he says, Pshita, obviously. So he says, Kamashmalan, dafilu talmid b'fnei rabo. Even if it's going to be a talmid in front of his rabbi, if he keeps quiet and he doesn't say it that it's a mistake, he gets punished. Meaning, imagine, this is his rabbi. He'll get punished if he doesn't say anything. He'll get punished. Rav Huna came out of Medina. When Rav Huna came out of Medina, Tanai the bear of Lekame. He used to bring 10 Talmidei Chachamim from the Beit Hadash in front of him. In order that he should get a small piece of the Kurag Dula, which means that if it is going to be that they made a mistake, right, at least it will be on everybody. Pamal, he didn't want to get punished by himself. So he brought another 10, so that way at least if there's going to be a punishment, it's divided by 10. Yeah, you understood? Ravashi, when he used to bring a trefa in front of him, he used to bring 10 tabachim, that they were experts. So he says at least if there's going to be a punishment, it's divided between everybody. Okay? Mishnah on Gimel Amud Bet. Mishnah says, Horu Bedin, Mishnah on Gimel Amud Bet. Horu Bedin yadu shetahu. What happens if they made the psak and then they realized their mistake? The chazru bain, so they retracted. Ben sheviu kaparatan, ben shlo viu kaparatam, ve'alach ve'asat piyan. Now what happens whether they actually brought their kapara or not? And then again, somebody came and he did according to the bedin. Shimon says it's still patur from chatat. Bilazar says no, it's going to be a safek if he's why? Because why is he doing it? You know, if he's tole be'atzmo and therefore he needs an asham talui, or is it be'emet tole be'bedin? So he brings an asham talui. Yeah, so he says ezu safek. What do you mean it's safek now? Right? He says yashav lo b'toch beto. If he was in his house, he's chayav asham talui because he could have found out. Meaning, if he's in house, find out. You know, some people they think they're by the kotel, and then I don't know, I didn't know what the rabbi said, or I didn't know what happened. No, you're chayav. If you're out of town, then you're going to be patur. You didn't know, you're out of town. Huh? We'll speak to the Elimim afterwards. Amar Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Akiva, Modeh ani, right? Modeh ani bazeh, shu karol lepatur min hachova. He says, I think that he's more karov lepatur min hachova. Amar lo berazai, Ma'ishna, why? What is the difference that he's yoshev beveto? You could have heard it. Here, he can't hear it. And that's why. Horu betin la'akor et kol haguf. What happens right now if Betin wanted to take away an entire Averah, like an entire Yisur in the Torah? Shamru, en nida b'Torah. There's no such thing as nida. Yeah? He gets all excited. Yeah? Or en Shabbat b'Torah. Right? Or en Avodah Kochavim b'Torah. Arelu p'turim. They're patur. Horu levatel mikzat ulkayem mitzat. But if they were more to be mevatel mikzat mitzah or the Yisur, or the lekayem mitzvah, they're going to be chayav. Keitza, what's the case? Amru yesh nida b'Torah. אבל הבעל השמן יום גנגנום פטור. Or יש שבה בתורה. אבל המוציאים רשות היחיד רשות הרבים is going to be פטור. Or there is עבודה זרה. but משתחווה is going to be פטור. There they're going to be חייב. שנאמר ונעלם דבר ולא כל הגוף. It has to be only part of it. A partial. But not the entire thing. Meaning if they were going to completely uproot something from the Torah, they're going to be patur. It has to be that the entire thing is still there and they're just changing something which is written in the Torah.
But it's only for a specific time. Which by the way means we can.
Yeah, you wish. Says the Gemara. You wrote it in your ketubah. You have it in your ketubah. Yeah, it's in your ketubah. No, usually it's not a super song. Usually it's printed out on this. But you signed it. What can you do? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Says Rav Yehuda the name of Rav. My Tamad B'Shimon, what's the reasoning when B'Shimon, Holu B'Shul Betin says, since he's doing B'Shul Betin, so this is going to be Patur, B'Chadat. Ika Damri, there are those that say, Amar Rav Yehuda Mashua says Rav Yehuda Rav, Omer B'Shimon Kol Ora She'etzah Mi'Berov Tziburu, if you have the Ora that came out from the majority of the Tzibur, Yachid Otzeh Otov, it's going to be Patur, if you should only Ora Ala Levchim et Shogam, meaning the reason why they give the Psak is to differentiate between Shogam and Mezid. So that's why it's going to be different. So Meitvei Paralem Davar Shel Tziburu, Sira Avdachim Batchila Govim Alehem, right, they're going to come and they're going to collect it. Even Rav Shimon, Rav Yehuda Omer, Miturmat Alishka Bain, it comes from Turmat Alishka. So it says the Gemara, why does he say that the Yachid is going to be patur? Why? He says, Kevin the Gavelehu, since we're going to collect the money, Havludo, he already knows about it. So if you want, you could answer Stam they were collecting money, or if you want to say he wasn't in the town. He holds like the other ones. We learned the opposite. But Chila Govin Lahen, Divra Yehuda Rishimon Omer, Turmat Alishka money, it comes from Turmat Alishka. So Tani Rabbi Mir Mechayev and Shimon Poter, Rabbi Lazar Omer Safek. It's a Safek. So Mishum Sumchus Amru Talui. It's Talui Vomed, and therefore there's no Achra. We don't know. It's like hanging. So Rabbi Yochanan Nasham Talui. That's the pshat. Do you have to bring in Nasham Talui or not? Amar Rabbi Lazar, Mashal Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Lazar Madhu. The Adam Shachal Safek Chel Safek Shuban. He ate a Safek. He doesn't know which one it is. No Dalos Shemevi Stam. He says over here, and now all of a sudden he found out what it was, that it's Safek. He has to bring in Nasham Talui. Right? Why? Because he doesn't know what happened. So he does have to bring in Nasham Talui. ולא מבעל המנדם הציבור מייתי, normally according to the mandam הציבור מייתי, אתם מפרסמים מינתה, that is going to be מפורסם, according to the mandam, בייתי מביאים, אתם לא מפרסמים מינתה, יהבה שאיל הבו אמני, still if there's going to be Shaul or not, whatever it is, so they're going to still say the same halacha, that he's going to bring anasham talui.